Hello. Yes, hello. I'm Vincent, Rolland, Vincent Associates. Glad to be here. Thank you to Alistair, Louisa, and the team for another amazing conference. This is the place to be. Thank you. Oh. We're going to talk about the customers. Customers in the room. We have a great panel here of experts, and really we're going to talk around the topic of how customer needs might have been changing here in the last little while. So I'd like each of our panelists to introduce themselves. I'll start here with Mike.
Yep, I'm Mike Christie. I'm the head of sales for the Americas for Global Jet Capital. I've been with them for about the last 8 years, based out of Columbus, Ohio.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Dave Stanley. I lead Vista America, president of operations. Been there about 2 years now. About 20 years with Collins Aerospace prior to that, and responsible for about 100 or so aircraft in the fleet.
And my name is Darren Large. I'm the Director of Facilities and Operations at Morristown Airport in New Jersey, and I'm coming into my 24th year there.
Dave Richter with Jet Access. We're the only integrated multi-vertical platform in private aviation.
Craig Ross, been in the business 25 years, first 10 Marquis Jet and NetJets, last 15 running aviation portfolio, which represents consumers in the 4 asset classes: full aircraft, fractional ownership, jet card, and on-demand charter.
Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate that. So it gives you a sort of a perspective of the different customers maybe that are being served here, and a lot of different ways of looking at a customer. So we're going to talk about that. Let's start, though. I'll start with Mike at this end, then we'll work on our way down. Basically, we're now, what, 5 years or more after COVID. We've gone through this sort of post-lockdown growth, hyper growth, and now we're in some sort of more maybe stable growth period. What customer needs have you seen changing? Anything in your world?
Just in general, the customer needs in our industry have been fairly consistent for a long period of time. These are people that need to travel. They need to travel with privacy, security, and with efficiency. But the complexities and the challenges that they face in trying to accomplish that mission change. And, a lot of our customers at Global Jet Capital tend to skew towards the Fortune 500, large corporate flight departments, and, they tend to adapt really well. With some of our customers that are a little bit smaller, one aircraft operations, we're getting a lot of feedback right now that, while we've seen a large increase in cost and you had the pilot shortage for a period of time, all of that seems to have gotten a little bit quieter, and the real focus is on the cost, the availability, and the timing of maintenance. And the real big frustration right now is the amount of AOGs that people are coming into from a time point, and those complexities. That seems to be the current complexity that we're getting the most feedback on, and it's impacting our customers that are either trying to close on a transaction or while they're operating a transaction that they've leased or financed through us.
Pretty chronic. Dave, in your world at VistaJet?
Well, it's at the end of the day, it's really all about the AOGs are certainly impacting. I don't think we've had more bird strikes this year for some reason than any other year that I can remember. But it's really we're just focused on controlling what we can control, right? So it's pulling in we've got maintenance facilities now that we're able to actually, be the priority, if you will, in our locations in Van Nuys or up in Wisconsin, in Red Wing, Wisconsin, where again we have we can sort of control our own destiny from that standpoint, and just that need to have aircraft available, I think, for clients is really the big push, right? It's the demand is certainly out there, and clients want access to aircraft is insatiable, and so just trying to meet that demand is priority number one.
A good problem to have. Darren, different perspective. You see all these airplanes arriving in beautiful Morristown Airport. Give us your view on the changing customer.
Yeah, I mean, a little bit different perspective, being the boots on the ground. Prior to COVID, we were pretty business heavy and would see the traditional business schedules in terms of going out in the morning and afternoon and stuff like that, not being around on the weekend, being fairly quiet. We've seen a huge transition over to the leisure side of it. A lot more folks that are chartering aircraft. One of the other issues that we're kind of dealing with and that we're seeing is the size of the aircraft that are coming into our facility. I mean, I just had a G700 out on the ramp the other day, and it's plus 100 feet on the wingspan. And unfortunately, on the infrastructure side, our infrastructure, as it relates to the runways, taxiways, and hangars, it can't keep up with the length and the width of these aircraft that are coming out. So, you know, it kind of leads to gridlock conditions sometimes at some of my friend airports up in the north. But yeah, the size of the aircraft are definitely changing, and we're seeing a bigger leisure market.
Got it. Thank you. Dave at Jet Access?
I think that COVID brought a lot of customers in for the first time who hadn't flown before, and they expected it to be easy and seamless. And a lot of owners and users of private aviation weren't set up properly with their expectations to say planes break and there's weather and there's all kinds of other things that affect commercial aviation, that affect private aviation. And what I've come to see is, you know, if we set those expectations properly for them now, they'll be lifelong users of private aviation. But if they come into it in the wrong way, that they'll end up leaving and just saying, you know, I had the money, but it was not even a better experience for me.
Craig, you've been advising people for a bunch of years, companies and high net worths. What are you seeing?
Yeah, I don't really see a heck of a lot of difference in those needs from where they've ever been. I think if you come out of post-COVID and just where we've been the last few years, their increased demand has created a gazillion more needs. So they're the same needs, but now the industry needs to service a heck of a lot more of them. I'd say with costs having gone up across the board in all four of those asset classes, I think these people are now needier. So the expectations are higher with paying a higher rate. And so, I mean, but the fundamental needs are still the same.
I think you don't like sell luxury in this business because it's implied, right? So they have an expectation again that like it should all just work, and us as the experts need to tell them like this is what you can expect for this trip, and this is how we'll back it up in case it doesn't work too.
Good luck.
So we have a demand, not a demand problem, but maybe a supply problem. Interesting. Let's talk, when Alistair set up this panel, he challenged us looking at things like headaches, customer situations, customer, I'll call it surprises, a nice way to put it, right? How are you managing expectations and setting that up so that, you know, things are going to happen, but how do you do that?
Well, I mean, a lot of it's just the same reason we're in this room, right? We're all trying to communicate and stay on top of the issues that customers face, try to know a little bit more about the market and not just understand what your niche is in the market, but understand the industry as a whole so that you're able to anticipate and then build relationships with the people. You know, we talked to a lot of the people on the panel and in this room in order to make sure the different parts of the transactions, the legal team, the brokers, the management companies, that we're all understanding what everybody needs to get done to have a transaction work smoothly, or, you know, when something new comes into play like the tariffs earlier this year, that, you know, for the most part that's kind of subsided, unless, you know, in a couple of markets like Brazil and for the Pilatus, that's still out there and it's still a reality. But, you know, knowing what's going on, being educated, and then being able to communicate that to the customer, and then also relying on your friends in the industry to be able to educate you on what your customers need to do, and sending them to people that you know and trust that can help them get ahead of that issue.
I think trust is a big word, isn't it? Yeah. Yes.
I was going to say, for talking to your industry colleagues is extremely important because there's so much brain power in this room right now. And I'll say, like, I talked to Vivek about tariffs back in the spring, and he told me about a workaround for, you know, Canadian and Mexican aircraft. And I was just having a conversation, but like he gave me a real solution. And so I think that's something we can all help each other with too.
Dave?
Well, it's a lot of it too, guys. It's you know, those vendor relationships, right? You know, you don't know what's going to go wrong and you don't know where it's going to go wrong, right? So having those resources, being able to reach out, you know, getting an aircraft from an operational standpoint, for me personally, I mean, it's just and the rest of the team, it's the how quickly we can resolve it, and from a vendor standpoint, from a parts standpoint, you know, one AOG puts it's like a ripple effect, right? It just to get another aircraft there, you're working off fleet, you're looking at the, you know, a board of you know, multiple solutions, multiple ways to solve problems. And certainly, I mean, having you know, that strong network and infrastructure that you can lean on to be able to help solve those problems is absolutely massive.
You guys have also added some vertical integration, I guess, with MRO capacity. Is that not?
Yeah, well, and I alluded to it earlier. We did, and it's on the West Coast. It's again, it's just what can we put in our own control, right? How can we control our own destiny? And so having 2 facilities here in the U.S., 4 in Europe, has been critical for us because again, we are the priority. We're able to ensure that our aircraft are in, they're back out, they're available, and you know, part of the, you know, one of the challenges, and I like to call it a champagne problem, but it's more of a, you know, if you put a lot of hours on your aircraft, they start to, you know, they start to look like they've got time in them, right? So it's ensuring that you're keeping up with the wear and tear and so forth. And so we've got a, you know, we invested in an interior shop up in Red Wing, Wisconsin, and that's their expertise, right? But they've got the materials, they've got, you know, the talent to be able to keep our aircraft looking good and keep them moving.
A lot of us having the right people. Darren, you work at an airport. You're director of an airport. Do you have any surprises or any things that happen?
Well, I just wanted to touch on the, you know, the developing the partnerships, because I think, you know, one of the things industry-wise is, you know, obviously we're the point on the map where everybody's going, and I know that everybody has relationships with the FBOs and stuff like that, but there's a big incentive to have a relationship with the airport in certain circumstances, and one of the things that we do, you know, separate from a lot of my other airports, is we engage with a lot of the operators that come in and out of our facilities to give them real-time data, especially as it relates in the winter and stuff like that, of what's going on the airport. Does it make sense for you to depart at this point? Are you going to be able to get in? What type of construction is going on? Because at the end of the day, we are partners with all of you guys to make sure that your customers can get to where they want to go and they're not getting diverted and going somewhere else. So if we can provide that, you know, that assistance to you, it's really somewhere that I think is kind of underserved, and developing that relationship with the airports is hugely beneficial.
You get some pretty important visitors at your airport too, don't you?
Yes, yeah, we do get some pretty important visitors. It's nice that he's back down in Florida now, so we don't have to deal with him right now. But yeah, that, you know, and that's another one of those things where when we know that activity is going on and we can kind of share that information, like, hey, you may not want to come in on Friday between this time and that time, you know. So, but yep, we do.
Craig, go ahead.
Yeah, I think I want to just expand on, you know, Dave mentioned earlier, the educating the client, which is easier said than done. The challenge is, as this industry has grown, the consumer is too often private aviation illiterate, which fundamentally is going to cause headaches, period, because they don't understand the industry. And then compounding that issue is there are too many industry customer service reps who are barely private aviation literate. And that compounds the issue. You have 2 people that don't know what they're talking about. And the industry's trying, but they're trying to keep up with growth. So if all of these big brands are growing, that means they have to keep hiring and training. And so it's tough.
Yeah, think about the charter customer who buys a plane, and then you start chartering that plane out, and it hasn't been properly explained to them how charter works, that the $6,000 an hour that you're paying them to charter their plane is a lot different than the $10,000 they were paying before when they were a charter customer, and where that $4,000 goes, and it doesn't go into your pocket, it goes to a whole bunch of other, you know, different things between FET and a charter broker who's doing a markup, and overnights for the crew, et cetera. So it really comes down to like teaching them that. And sometimes they don't want to listen anyway. But you know, we can do the best we can, at least to say we did explain this to you at one point.
Okay, a couple of questions coming in here on Slido. Let's look at maybe the first one here. It says, is the drop in service quality at larger aviation firms tied to misalignment between sales promises and operational delivery? Anybody want to try that one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of over-promising and under-delivering in our industry, and then aircraft management's a very sticky business. So you sign an agreement to have your aircraft managed for a year, and if the salesperson wasn't communicating properly with the ops team and the owner services team on what they had sold, then the owner's disappointed, and obviously they're going to move. But it's hard to move. If you're on a 135 certificate, your pilots have to get retrained. You're going to have downtime where you're not getting charter. And so it needs to be done right from the beginning. But I think there's definitely a lot of doing whatever you can to get the deal in our business. And it hurts the customer, frankly.
Yeah, I'd also counter, I don't believe there's been a drop in service at the larger companies. I think there's been an uptick in service.
A differentiation between the strong and the weak, is that fair to say?
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, we have another question for the panel. Let's talk about evolving customer demographics. We've all heard about this. Are you seeing any shift of interest in owning an airplane versus experiencing private aviation? I'll start with Mike.
So, you know, I think a number of people talked about it earlier today. There is a shift from an access to an ownership period, mindset. But when you look at the data, while fractional has continued to grow and, charter has grown, so has just traditional Part 91. So, and when you really think about it, the needs of the customer are going to drive the solution that they ultimately go to. And when you're running 400 or 400 plus hours a year and you're trying to do it, at some point you're going to start thinking that there's, having my own aircraft and then being able, and the number's a little bit different for some people it's as little as 125 hours, but having control of my own aircraft is really important at that point. And so, they're going to want to have their own asset. So I think what we've got is we've gotten a broadened avenue for people to access business aviation. And then it's just a matter of where people are going to fall based on their needs and how their needs evolve. And I think somebody had mentioned it yesterday, and I know FlexJet's been really big in trying to be backup lift, that supplemental lift that corporate aviation departments used to use charter for. And now you're starting to see some of them get 25-hour cards just to have that to back up and be a gap between a 2-aircraft fleet and a 3-aircraft fleet.
Mike, are you seeing younger and maybe more ladies working with you? Are we seeing demographic changes like that? Or?
You are seeing a lot of demographic changes. It's one of those things that we're about to enter, and we've already started it. One of the greatest transitions of wealth that we've seen in this country. So you have some wealth going down from the founders into the family offices. That changes the dynamic of the customer relationship. You have a lot of people who have started businesses, and we've been in an environment where access to capital has been fairly cheap for growth and venture capital, so that helps with wealth creation. And somebody gets that wealth and has that a little bit more liquidity behind them, and they're going to be more inclined to fly using business aviation. And then you've had, with the number of entrepreneurs, I think that capital has been a little bit more open to populations that it hasn't been in the past. So you are seeing that as the younger generation comes up, that there's a lot more demographic diversity.
Thank God for private capital.
Yep.
Vista Jet, you do great high-touch service. When I think of top of the charter market, I think always of Vista. So what are you seeing in the demographic world? Anything you want to talk about?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's our whole business model, right? It's to replace aircraft ownership, right? So it really is a focus on providing that same level of service level of having your own crew that are used to you and that infrastructure. But we're trying to replicate that, but in a subscription model, and that's really the primary driver behind that the program side of what we do. But you know, it's sort of been fundamental to the growth that we've seen. So absolutely, yes, we have seen a change in behavior from you know, somebody who typically would purchase an aircraft, whether that be a high net worth individual, or it could be a company who is considering, you know, maybe they always had 3 aircraft. Well, you know, maybe we'll just stick with 2 now that you know, we've sold 1 off. We'll use that 3rd aircraft, a subscription model from Vista to do that, to take care of that lift for them. But I think there's a lot to, you know, the changing demographic as well, right? Because, you know, some of the executives are younger, you know, even the high net worth individual who maybe inherited that aircraft, that's really, they don't need to own the airplane. They'd rather have access to an aircraft.
With the 3 kids, they don't need to own dad's airplane, right?
Exactly.
They want 3 of their own, right?
Exactly. They just want to be able to utilize the aircraft, but they absolutely want that highest level of service. That expectation is still there, and so it's certainly a challenge, but it's something that, you know, we continue to see. We've had many private aircraft owners come to us and say, hey, the aircraft that I have doesn't necessarily fit the model or the mission for, you know, flying regionally or flying, you know, further distance. And so they like the option of being able to pick the right aircraft for a particular mission. So what they'll do is they'll ask us to manage the aircraft. They'll take advantage of a program or purchase hours from us. We'll operate their aircraft. We'll put time on their aircraft through our, you know, through a digital marketplace, and so they still see the utilization, but they still have access to their aircraft as well as access to the fleet, to the Vista fleet.
Dave, I think in the managed world, you're seeing a few different things.
Yeah, well, what I was going to say is that I think with that generational shift in wealth, that the kids don't always want the parents' plane. And so that's been driving business to Vista and the 91K companies. And we're seeing it, like we have a small shared ownership program. And I think it's the guys that, I don't want the headaches of a whole aircraft, but I still want to fly private. So just tell me, write a check, make sure the plane is there, the pilots are there, and the plane's going to go to where I need to go. They want that kind of simplicity. And then it comes along with how you communicate with them, where their parents might have wanted a phone call. You know, now they're fine with having it done by text or any other means.
Darren, I think you were saying that you're seeing quite a bit of change now, more weekend traffic, maybe more fractional ownership traffic, which possibly is leisure oriented. Are you seeing demographic changes as well there?
Oh yeah, we're seeing demographic changes. The age is a lot younger than what we've seen. You know, going back to before about educating people on flying privately. It's funny because I go back, I mean, we've literally had people have picnics out in front of the FBO before they get on the plane because they just don't know. And we're like, you know, you can get catering and go on the airplane. So it's interesting to see this. And, you know, they come into the airport and they're not used to flying out of a private airport. They don't really know what the FBO is. They don't have any real education on that. But yeah, the demographic is changing. There's a lot more younger couples, kids, stuff like that. And it's definitely a more leisure-orientated market.
Not just Tiger Woods coming with his bag of Big Mac or something like that. Cool. Craig?
Yeah.
Denny's.
I don't know how much I see the demographics really changing. I think we're seeing the same amount of demand for full aircraft, same amount of demand for charter and card. I think there's been some turnover in the charter card market who have moved up to fractional. So in that fractional, and you put Vista as a fractional alternative in that category, I think, yes, there is clearly some extra demand in that particular category. I think there's if you listen to all these presentations, there's a lot of buzz, buying younger, buying larger, taking longer flights international. And while, yes, maybe there's an uptick there, we're not seeing any downtick in those 1.5 to 2 hour flights that people want smaller planes. And that is an area that I think is sort of a deteriorating segment in our space. In the charter and card space, they're older planes. You don't have all these, and I'm not putting the Praetor 500 or the Latitude in the mid-cabin category. It's an aging sort of fleet. The cabins aren't kept up as much, lower time crews for anyone that pays attention, generally speaking. So I think that's an area, and that's your entry-level point for most people that come into the space. So I think that's an area that there's an opportunity for somebody to come in that below 50-hour mark.
Okay, great. A couple more questions have come in on Slido. Let's look at those. The first one here on the top. Why do you say that customers want or need to know about the personal jet, I guess, PJ industry? They are customers and are expecting just to be served. How do you react to that?
You know, it's one of those things that when you're looking at buying a complicated product, you know, we have these great computers in our pocket that have access to a lot of data. You have AI bots that help summarize a lot of the information for you. And, you know, when you're making a big purchase or a big investment in private aviation is a big investment or, you know, a big purchase, you need to know a little bit about the market or have somebody you can trust and you know, be able to rely on them. And that's, you know, you don't have to be an expert in the market, but you have to know enough to watch out for some of the pitfalls and know enough to hire a team that's experienced around you for whatever you're doing. And regardless of, you know, what you're looking at, if you're looking at fractional or subscription program, talking to somebody at Vista, if you're trying to figure out through the, you know, broad access of all the different things out there, talking to a broker or consultant, or talking to, you know, Aviation Portfolio that will run you through the different options. If you're talking about management, having somebody like Dave, you know, by your side to be able to take care of those issues and get out ahead of it for you, because there are a lot of things that if you go in blind, your expectations can be very disconnected from the reality, and that's where you get people buying something and then deciding private aviation isn't for them. And that's not something that any of us in this room want. We want happy customers. We want well-served customers. To do that, they have to be educated customers.
It's good to know somebody who knows, and yeah, great.
I mean, how many people here know a rich person that got ripped off in private aviation? Right? So I think they need to be educated because it's big dollars, and there's a lot of people chasing the big dollars, and not all of them are good people. So if you can educate them on the good and the bad in this business, then I think they're going to come out ahead and continue to use the product.
I also think they want to be educated. They don't know how to be educated. They're not spending the time to get educated. But to say they just want to be served, I don't believe that. They would love to know in the same way they know about art, wine, real estate, etc.
It's also an infrequent purchase, right? For most people, it's maybe every 5 years, 7 years, 9 years now. And to have people you trust who can walk you through that, and you don't buy a G4 SP that needed a major overhaul or something. You know, we've seen some real surprise stories here. Okay, let's look at the next question.
Actually, if you wouldn't mind, let me expand on that. But when you look at some of the family offices and the corporations that we serve, that by the time they get to the next jet, the treasury contact that was involved in financing the jet has moved on to a new role. Usually you might have a new CFO. You're going to have some changes in the aviation department. So even within the customer, by the time they get to that next purchase, if they were relying on their team to help them with the purchase, that team needs to be re-educated because you've got a new team.
And even the C-suite. I mean,
Yep.
Typical C-suite is what, 3 years or something in the job, right? Great. Okay, go ahead.
I was just going to say, like, you know, an example would be a charter customer that I was introduced to, and they had been using a charter broker that they'd lost some trust in, and there was a couple $100,000 trip that they were doing internationally, and they called around and they got a quote for the same identical plane for the same trip at a different price from a different broker that they hadn't used before. So like that happens in our business, I would say almost frequently. And again, if they know who the good people are in the business that are going to take good care of them, that's really important for the long-term success of their private flying.
Okay, let's look at the next question. As more products and memberships flood the market, how can companies ensure customers are getting transparent, unbiased guidance?
Just hire Craig.
Hire Craig. So Craig, you're the guy.
Yeah, I mean, that's the beauty of being independent and not making money on transactions, but it's hard not to make money on transactions.
It really is like you have to, you approach somebody and they have something to sell because that's what they do, right, for a living. So look for somebody like Craig, maybe with a portfolio approach to the market.
Yeah, and hopefully the technology comes out where more of what I do you can just find on ChatGPT, but not today.
Well,
I
but-
checked this morning. I asked 3 times the same question, and I got really bad answers. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, but just, I mean, an additional point on that too is it's on us in this room that we all have a product to sell, but knowing where the product fits and where it doesn't. I mean, there are countless number of times that I give a phone number to another financial provider, if the deal doesn't fit the box for Global Jet Capital. It makes no sense for me to waste their time. I'm happy to listen to anybody and have a conversation, listen to what their needs are, try to identify where the best fit, and if it's not me, I'm happy to give them the phone number to get them down the path to the right solution.
That's really cool.
We advertise that an expectation, and so what we see is people will show, and it depends where they either a program client or even a charter client coming on board one of our aircraft. A lot of times it's we sort of have our call it what we train to and how we provide the service and so forth, and I think there, a lot of times, especially in the U.S. market, we see clients not really sure what it, even the top tier folks that are renting the largest aircraft that we have or leasing out the largest aircraft that we have, they really that expectation is very, very high, and so it's incumbent upon us to the sales teams do a great job at positioning and getting them to understand the level of service that we provide, but they also want to see it, right? And it's it's something that has to be repeatable and for the operation.
Tangible too, right? I mean,
absolutely.
The real experience, yeah. Let's take a question on the next gen of airplanes. I looked at Darren on this one. Darren, what kind of new airplane do you want to see arriving at Morristown in the future?
Well, I would tell you that I don't want to see much bigger wingspan than I'm seeing right now.
Hey, what you don't want to see, okay.
Because it's getting pretty tight. And we are fortunate that we do see a lot of the new generation of aircraft coming in and out, whether it be the Gulfstreams and the Falcons and stuff like that. But yeah, we're getting constrained on the wingspan, and I know that there's an advantage to increasing that wingspan and that length, but unfortunately, like I said, the infrastructure just cannot keep up with it.
The big jets are about 100 by 100 now, right? And feet long, feet wide, yeah. Cool. Anyone else on that one? Next airplanes, Dave?
I mean, maybe the second part of the customer pilot experience through AI. I think a lot of tasks that owner services are doing right now will be automated through AI and make things a lot simpler and actually probably a little bit higher touch, because with it being automated, it's not somebody who forgets to do it or doesn't put the task in Salesforce or whatnot.
Anyone else?
Well, the only thing I'd add is the industry's done a great job and the communication side, right? So it's the the applications that pilots and crews have access today, and I think that just will continue to grow. I mean, I think that sharing what's happening within the operation or what a particular client's need is, and there's a million things that are going on day to day with a crew and operating an aircraft and the catering and everything that goes along with it, right? So but I think AI is something that will certainly help, not only from a scheduling standpoint and crew rest and all of those things that go along with that, but also just being able to have all the information in one place, all collected, all parsed, all easy to understand, and operationally just make these crews more and more efficient.
And I mean, on the airfield side, we're beta testing AI technology right now for FOD on the airfield and locating FOD on the airfield. We're going to start rolling out beta testing for AI technology as it relates to snow removal and potentially utilizing it for our RCAMs.
Snow in New Jersey? Sorry?
Oh yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
The last couple of years you wouldn't think so, but yeah, we have it. So, but the nice thing about the AI technology, especially as it relates to RCAM and stuff like that, is it kind of takes that subjectivity out of it, where the person that's driving and trying to determine what the coverages and stuff like that are. The AI technology can do those calculations, which gives you a better runway condition code for the operators that are coming in and out.
Are they using drones on the field or more just cameras?
Cameras, AI cameras on the operations vehicles.
Interesting. Great. Okay, we're running, we have just a couple more minutes. Why is there still so little educational content online to help people make sense of private aviation options? Do we have anyone who wants to jump on that one, Dave?
Just so that we can all look like experts. I think there's a lot out there actually right now, frankly. But if most websites you look at, everyone's an expert. Everyone's been doing this forever. They've done a million deals. And I think it really comes down to thinking about the customer in all of this and what are they looking for. And I don't think there's content focused on that for them, where it's like, describe what you need and we'll show you how to help. It's more just trust us. We've been doing this for a long time.
I like this next question here. Where do you think AI should end and human activity, I guess, should begin in the customer service world?
It all depends on that customer and their expectations. Some customers are going to be a lot more comfortable having an AI interface, and then you're going to have a number of people in our industry that, for a period of time are going to want to have that personal connection. And, it's up to us to kind of anticipate that need and try to meet them where they expect us to meet them.
We've got to have that ready, though, the AI tool. I mean, we have a long way to go, don't we? Yeah.
I think from our the Vista experience or the Vista standpoint, we've got client services teams that are just so close to understanding every individual want and need. So we're probably a long way away from AI, taking that piece over. But that doesn't, again, it still doesn't mean that, it can't help us internally a little bit. Maybe not so much an external sort of conduit for a client, but more of an internal, something that gives us, better access to information and stay on top of, whatever that may be.
How are most of your customer service requests coming in? Is it like email, text, voice?
Ours coming in, all of the above, right? It could be an app, it could be email. It just depends on the immediate need. If it's day of, I mean, my phone rings sometimes. It's like, this needs to happen. This absolutely has to happen. Yesterday, and so. It just depends. It absolutely depends, and that's why it's so hard to try to figure out a way to funnel all that communication through one sort of application.
Yeah, I think the AI will be able to handle up to medium to severe level disruption. You want a human being involved in that, and then AI should be able to handle all of it when nothing goes wrong, and then you just need a great relationship manager to still call to build the relationship, but you don't need to be in the middle of the flight. You just need to build that relationship for that loyalty.
Yeah, I mean, I just wonder, there's got to be something out there already where you're recording all of the transcripts between the customer service rep and the client in any kind of format, and then AI can be like, all right, well, I know what this response is going to be to help with this, and probably can copy the voice too at this point, right?
Yeah. Any other on that? We have about a minute left. Any questions from the floor? We're just reading them off a Slido. Maybe we'll take one more. No, maybe we'll forget that. Not sure which of those three to even begin to ask there too. Okay, yeah. Let's talk about let's summarize here. Last words are, on customer needs, how they've changed.
I think Craig and I are on the same thought pattern that they really haven't changed over the period of time in this industry. They want access quickly to get to a destination. They want to be able to use these tools. The challenges and how they access and adapt to business aviation and the reality is really what's there, and that's on us. And to the extent that we continue to innovate and find ways to get barriers out of people's way, whether it's the cost barrier, the maintenance availability barrier, efficiency that we have, and then the ability for them to get what they want when they want, then you're going to have that customer demand follow once you remove those friction points. So it's really all about removing the friction points or anticipating the friction points so that somebody doesn't feel them.
Okay, we'll wrap it up there. If you want to speak with any of our panelists, we're going to be available, of course, for you afterwards. So I just want to say thank you to the panel. Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you, Rolland.
Thank you. Thank you, Rolland.